Hello, everybody. You remember that? Oh, gosh. All right. So, let's start off strong by saying, unironically, the only people in society that need to be aborted are the parents of teenagers getting pregnant, or the 30-plus-year-old predators that are creating that situation, or people who crop dogs' ears and tails. I mean, bare minimum, those people should be sent to Siberia. So, hello, everybody. I hope everybody's enjoying the new year. I certainly am. I just got back from church, had a good time. You know, life's been a lot better since I started getting back into going to church. And I strongly suggest anybody doing that. But, however, keep in mind that all manners of falling away from the faith can actually be attributed to lack of good holy men and people who take up the position of holy men in order to receive the sacraments into themselves, instead of being a vessel by which, through kenosis, the emptying of oneself, one gains the ability to properly distribute sacraments. That's the whole point of it, and that's the whole point of chastity, poverty, and obedience, is to minimize your ego, minimize yourself, and do not be afraid of hunting for good pastors, good priests, good laymen who have religious advice for you, like myself. I'd love to talk about religion more and more on this podcast. There's lots and lots to talk about. And I really like to juxtapose the history. You know, it makes some people upset. I've actually noticed that it makes a couple of people upset when I talk about Christianity, as in, you know, I've already made my mind up and I'm projecting that up into the camera. That's my opinion. You know, I very much hope that people don't view that as me trying to bash them over the head with what I believe, because, you know, you got to find your own way. And you know, I've been watching kind of from afar. I'm not on any major social media, although I gravitated back towards Facebook recently, and kind of on and off. I focused myself on this project and thinking for this project, and it's focusing on this project. But Elon Musk is really going through it. And here's an interesting thing. Everybody knows that rich people suck. It just depends on if you have a job working for a rich person who has a fantasy up that they don't feel like they suck. Now, a lot of rich people genuinely feel like they suck. Want to know why? Because that's their job, is to suck up resources and not let them go. It's a hoovering. It's a vacuuming. And thus, you know, rich people kind of hate themselves. And you'll see this if you observe upper crust society and how they go about things. And that kind of explains Elon going a little emo. But that's a perfectly natural stage before getting better, you know? And I really hope he takes this as an opportunity to get better. You know, he's one of the most powerful people in the world right now. And no amount of making fun of him is going to change that. You'll only make it so that he will make even worse decisions. He will do even more destructive things. He will think even less about the common person because so many people have, you know, pissed on him. You should reserve that, you know. That's a powerful weapon. Don't waste your criticism. Hold it back. It increases its potency. And employ a little guile so that rich people can start making better decisions instead of being a reason, like the people who throw soup all over, like expensive paintings, like good paintings too, not just nonsense modern art write-offs. Those people, and extremely loud and annoying people who just don't contribute and make everything worse, they make it more easy to despise and to hate and to hurt, especially if you have power. And that is the very mechanism by which the Masons churn more and more pain into our system, demoralizing all of us to the point where they're even, you know, going to islands and essentially raping our children as a whole, as the class of the bottom and middle, in front of us and getting away with it. And there's nothing that people can do. This is apparently one of the biggest demoralizing tactics that is employed. And you can't absorb that because that allows you to be pawns in their games. And you do not want to be a pawn for a pedophile, really. So, I've been thinking about, there's two ways of hunting for knowledge. One's wise, and the other is unwise. You could hunt for knowledge without any sort of awareness and any sort of mindfulness. And you could collect all these things in your intelligence that just drives you mad. Or you could use proper tactics and focus yourself. Minimize and maximize the things that are important in order to properly hunt for knowledge in a way that is productive and wise. And that will allow you to, over time, exercise your wisdom muscles. Wisdom isn't something that's easily found. It's a muscle like charisma that has to be built up. Pharmaceuticals actually deteriorates a lot of those psychic muscles. And that's one of the reasons why so many people suffer from health problems down the road that aren't even listed as side effects. It's not just about the physical aspects of it. It's also about the mental aspects of it. And a lot of people who are on pharmaceuticals are isolated and depressed. And that leads to a lapse of cognition that increases dementia. And dementia eventually leads to Alzheimer's, and Alzheimer's makes the organ shut down. It's deadly. And it all goes back to training your brain every day like you train your muscles so that you don't end up going through processes of falling down. It's not venerable just to fall down. It's venerable to fall down and then get up. So it's important to make sure that you plan ahead and try not to fall so that you don't have to go through all of that. And certainly, it's no romantic thing to romanticize your suffering and to think that, by the nature of your suffering, you gain a glimmer of sympathy. That is a long-term case, but you also drain things around you in the process of it. And most importantly, you drain your potential. And I think that's a big thing, and that's very, very touched in the Abrahamic religions, all three of the Abrahamic religions, is that you have to put yourself second to your community. And you know what? It's very, very easy to believe in a community of elect who God loves. It's super easy to do that. That is an ancient thing. It's happened for thousands, if not tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of years, to believe in a select community that never dies, but not apply that to cultures and peoples that you do not consider part of that select group. That's Calvinism personified. And in many ways, that is how the Vatican can end up viewing itself if it's made up of ignoble people. The true monotheism of all the great men and women throughout the Abrahamic religions is a recognizing of God in everybody and an acting on that in a genuinely productive way. And in that, you cannot fall. You cannot simply be a martyr. You have to martyr yourself for the right causes. And that goes back to not investing yourself and your energy into lost causes, but instead focusing yourself and pinpointing what's most important for you to work on. Makes me think, I wonder if there was a Fenton clan that invented fentanyl, or if it comes from Finland or something like that. Anyways, it was a nasty, nasty drug. There's actually a tradition of clipping videos and hunting to find the perfect combination of sound bites. That it goes back to the old YouTube poop days, and Liquid Richard is a really good artist in the sector that does that with Wings of Redemption, and I think Ralph is MC Jarbo. MC Jarbo's old work is disgusting. Like, he had a little, like, 2 year, period where he was really, really good. But, like, you go back and you look at MC Jarbo's old stuff and it's nasty. I don't like that at all. Like, genuinely nasty. Um, it is what it is. You see a lot of that in the sector. You see a lot of, and I'm going to get into that, actually. I'm going to get into this. You see I'm wearing my Kiwi Farms shirt? Hold it together. And let me get into a little bit of history for you. So the Kiwi Farms is actually made up of a variety of different organizations that have coalesced together, from the original Quickie forums that Null inherited to which was about Christian Weston Chandler. I've been following Christian Weston Chandler for 15 years. To Wizard Chan and 8chan and 9chan. Now, there's a big problem with 8chan, which is to say that it was swamped with pedophiles. Absolutely and utterly mega saturated with pedophiles. And that's exactly why Null created 9chan. This is all takes on 4chan, but there's also 2chan, which is Japanese, and there's a whole bunch of other ones. I haven't even looked into those sectors since I was like 24. But I do know my history because I learned everything that I could while I was working for Kiwi Farms so that I could best properly, serve the entity before I found out just how rotten from the inside it really is. I wasn't looking at the right part, I guess, or maybe I was just imagining something that wasn't there. Either way, 9chan had the same exact problem where tons of pedophiles would flood in and flood the airwaves with anime child porn and even regular child porn, and Null constantly had to ban them. And he noticed that the same people who were posting anime child porn were the same people that were posting regular child porn based on, IP tags and stuff like that. So that's when we first got the major, arguments about that stuff. And I was, Null's banner holder on that. I really, 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 I would have fought to my death as his champion back when he cut Dick Masterson off for fantasizing about being a little girl. I'm not going to continue that sentence. If you know, you know. And saying, I can't be your friend if you fraternize with pedophiles like Vito. Now, no, I'll just say it. Vito is a pedophile. Meet me in court, bitch. So, a lot of the people that make up Kiwi Farms are crypto pedophiles that have learned ways to ingratiate themselves in Null's presence without getting noticed and kicked out. It's part and parcel of being incredibly dishonest, and that's a problem that he's had to deal with for a very, very long time, and it's one of the reasons why he's so angry and so aggressive. He has the mindset of a pit bull, because all he sees is nasty little diseased rats trying to spread their plague everywhere that they can touch. No offense against Skaven. So, I understand it, It's just like, you don't have to take your champions and stab them in the back for no reason. Like, literally, I was willing to move to Wyoming for you. And you lie about me and say that I threw piss all over my dad? Well, for the first time, he actually learned about that, and he's going to be refuting that soon when I bring him on stream. So, I can literally clip that and in the Odyssey stream that he did on me, and then put it next to my dad refuting that and go, this is exactly why Null is a liar. And there's a variety of other things that were made up and passed on as true as well. And I really, really need to whap his knuckles with a ruler about that, because he has big responsibilities. He is lucky that people cared when he didn't. He's lucky, and he better not abuse that luck. There's a lot of people that count on him. Men who do more driving than walking and more sitting than driving end up extremely weak and emasculated. And I was being made fun of on Kiwi Farms for a while for not having insurance. But everybody hates insurance. You know, this little fantasy that you're going to shame me into being against my better natures, against my instincts. It's not going to work. And frankly, all those anonymous little creeps who attempt to shape reality with their little meme magic, I really, really hope that they turn. And if they don't, I'll enjoy watching them get what's coming to them. Because it's coming. Believe me, if you live in a fantasy for long enough, you got it coming. Anyways, AI has been completely and utterly cheapening all the work that people can do. You know, people used to have to work very, very hard to make somebody say the things that they wanted them to, and now they can just run it through an AI program. And it sounds like crap, but, you know, they can get it done. It's basically the audio equivalent of Photoshop, and, you know, if you know, you know, and if you don't, well, I guess you live in a sludge world where what's fake is real and what's real is fake. Here's a fun fact. Andrew Jackson traded the Upper Peninsula of Michigan for a little bit of Ohio called the Toledo Strip. And it made the lines nice and even. Which I'm sure made the Masons very happy. They like their lines. And it was George McClellan. I almost said Elijah McClellan. George McClellan, who is a Civil War general, he was Irish, and he actually created West Virginia. Another little fun fact. West Virginia was created by an Irishman. So, speaking of war, the post-Axis powers from Italy to Germany to Japan, I've noticed create the most annoying crap. The most annoying, insipid crap. Like rice rockets or BMWs that you have to legally sign away your ability to drive safely and sanely in order to get in. And little scooters and crazy Ferrari type cars out of Italy. I'm a big fan of the Corvette, although probably wouldn't spend money on it if I had the money. Anyways, you could call the Celts cowlords and boormeisters, but the Germans would probably call them cowherds. It is what it is, you know. It's funny that you can actually trace the time where the Germans and the Italians were hitting the Celtic people in a pincer movement that pushed them out into France and later the British Isles. But after the Celts and the Italians and the Hispanics, speaking of which, Romanians are Latins. After they combined under Catholicism, it was actually the Germans that got it rough. And I would have loved to see everybody get along in ancient history, but you know, that is, violence begets violence, war begets war. You know, you set these things up thinking that you won temporarily, but that comes back to bite you hundreds of years later, you know. So for all intents and purposes, you really should try to do the right thing. Even if you don't see any sort of lucre for it in the immediate, you really, really should try to endeavor to tell the truth and be a good person and help the world, heal the world, because it needs a lot of healing. We're about to lose our most valuable resources, which is the ecosystem by which propagates healthy and vibrant plant life, of which animal life thrives in. Plants don't care about history. They're too busy making it. But they need protection because they don't care about history. You know, my old priest, Sifrid, he was a big fan of ball busting. And one time he said, "We do abuse here," as like a joke, but I didn't find that very funny. I don't like ball busting comedy. It's just the same lock, stock, and barrel generic sadism disguised as something else, something empathetic or, you know, trying to shake people out of their shell. You got to be tactical, min-max, you know, and then find your perfect route instead of wasting time where you don't belong. I had a friend. Oh, and by the way, if you enjoy having your balls busted, play Darkest Dungeon. I've been playing that a lot recently. I've been sick recently. I've been feeling better, but Darkest Dungeon is a very hard and very fun. Well, I can hardly say it's fun because of how hard it is, but it's an interesting game. I had a friend growing up. His name was Jamil, and he had a magnificent afro. It was truly impressive, and he was one of the most popular guys in high school. He was a senior when I was a freshman. He was the first person to ever tell me to keep my head up. And quite frankly, I wasn't really super depressed. I was a little depressed moving into Florida, but I mostly looked down because I grew up in North Carolina. We look for snakes, we look for rocks, you know? It's as simple as that. But he told me to keep my head up, and I internalized that way more than I think he intended, and we ended up being very close friends. Unfortunately, though, well, here's the thing. I never saw him put caustic crap and garbage and apple cider vinegar and lemon juice and crap like that in his hair. He never did that. He never made his hair like a nappy mess of dissolved fibers. He worked very, very hard, and he'd just hang off of his bed and let his hair dry up, you know, for a period of time. I think that's ultimately his secret, was literally being able to hang his head off the bed for 2 hours while playing his DS and, you know, training that afro up. And it was a magnificent afro. You know, every single walk, every single step, you can see it jiggling, and then that's cool. And he was already super, super tall, and the afro added another, 5 or 6 inches on top of him, you know. It's pretty impressive. Actually, probably even more than that. It varied in size. Isopods are the schizoid spirit animal. Unfortunately, most people are tapeworms, but isopods are beloved by our lovely schizoid friends. I consider myself to be potentially schizoid at one point, but I'm not. I'm normal. I'm a normal guy. I'm happy to be normal. I'm happy to be regular. Oh, I noticed this, and other people noticed this before me, but this is interesting. Anime actually utilizes cat faces and cat eyes. That's all that it does. It uses, you know, cat profiles on the side and cat eye sizes and shapes. But anime probably wouldn't exist if it wasn't for the United States causing the Japanese economy to induce liquidity by counterfeiting their own money, by printing a ton of money, in 1978. And it was a petri dish for what we would do in our own economy. I'm sure people like George Soros were involved in this. They're the currency speculators who are involved in such projects. But it's right after that where you see fantasy being put on a major pedestal. And I think that's non-coincidental. I don't think it was the nuke. I think it was us destroying their economy and forcing them to be a bunch of fantasy seekers, because their economy was turning into a fantasy, propped up fantasy, a facade, hollow in the back. You know, it's not their fault at all. We did that to them. Technically, Romanians are non-Hispanic Latinos. So Romanians, Latinx. Oh, and Rip Charles I, you are missed. Charles I was the king of England and Scotland. He had all Scotland, he had all of Northumberland, he had all of Wales, and he had a lot of Chester and Oxford. But it's around the London International Port where the parliamentary system mounted a militia against him. And he was killed. He's very sad about his general marching off into that war and dying. Because naturally, you know, well, just the rightful king of England, but got to go through that, you know, faux democratic process by which men in smoke-filled back rooms make these decisions for the vast majority of people and then call it democracy. Anyways, I think that wraps it up for today. I'll take it easy.